Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you all today and sharing in this conversation for the Women's Empowerment Summit and how important it is for us to be taking this time to really focus on us and reflect and just to experience that transformation that can happen. I always like to say that when I have these types of conversations or when I'm in a room full of people talking about these types of things, that I create a sacred space and a sacred learning space, a nest where we can all feel safe to come together, share ourselves, kind of dig into the juicy stuff that really makes us who we are. And that's my hope for us today. And especially during this time, and I want to acknowledge this unprecedented time that we're facing today, and the things that we're experiencing in our world as a result of those unprecedented times. And we're hearing so much about slowing down, reflecting, yearning for that life that we used to have, life as we know it, to return, and all at the same time trying to stay in a good mindset and to keep our family safe and to keep ourselves safe. And as we're doing this and we're learning some things about ourselves, and those things that we're learning, some of them may be beautiful and pretty and shiny, and then others maybe not so much. One of the things that I've really learned about myself is that I really need a schedule really badly. And when I don't have that schedule, um, it can create for some not so pretty days. So, what I'm really trying to do is to honor that schedule and create that morning routine and to stick to that morning routine and honor that space with myself. And then also creating a schedule for my children and their learning and their experiences through all of this. We're all in this frontier together. We don't have many experiences to pull from, it's all new. And when I'm learning about my schedule is that the calls to be in the moment and to just experience life as it's coming at us, because there are so many unknowns, not landing so well with me because of that need for schedule. So I'm really trying to uh, honor that, to really feel that, and to be in that space. Um, and that those days when I didn't really honor my schedule, that those days were not as good as the others when I was honoring my schedule. So it's really important for us to do that. And one of the other things that's really coming to light is this feeling of the world that we live in. Maybe not so much right now, is very quick. It's fast. We're moving from one thing to another to another to another so quickly, and our plates just keep getting fuller and fuller and overflowing to the point that um, we don't know exactly what to do about that and how to handle that. Um, so maybe during this time, we will find the ability to simmer and to not rush around so much, and to realize that maybe that Amazon Prime life doesn't need to be so quick all the time, that we can really um, stop and really reflect, and that we don't need those sheets in 2 days or less, that we can wait for them. And that if we do those things, and if we really look at our plates and what's on them and what's overflowing them, that we can realize that um, maybe there's some things on there that we don't need on there anymore, and we should pull those things back and really take the time to assess that when we get back to normal, that maybe there are some things that should not come back, and that maybe there's some things that maybe we should add in that we weren't taking the time for before. So I think this is a really good time, a really good opportune time for us to really reflect on that and what that could look like for us. So that's really going to kind of lead us into the conversation that we're going to have today. And the conversation that we're going to have today is really focusing on you and who you are, and how you came to be the woman that you are today, what life experiences have brought you there. And I'll share about myself, this little girl right here, that's me when I was 5, my first day of kindergarten. And I had so much anxiety on this day. I was so overwhelmed. I did not want to go to kindergarten. I was a pretty smart child. I read from a really young age. So academically, I liked the idea of school and the idea of learning. but I did not want to leave my home. And I had a lot of anxiety around that. I was very overwhelmed and cried a lot, and tried not to leave my dad's side when I was um, going into kindergarten. And so part of that for me has carried through, this anxiety, this change that creates that feeling of overwhelm within me. And I'm looking into the face of that little girl and realizing that that's followed me in many different ways throughout my life. And I remember feeling anxiety and feeling overwhelmed and feeling not good enough and all of those kind of things, even when I was this little girl. So what's interesting is becoming this 5-year old that I'm seeing in this picture here, leading up to this day, I didn't have a normal start to life. I had some experiences, the way that I came into the world, how I was raised, all those kind of things, and those things have influenced me and continue to influence me today. Um, and so that's what brings me to my idea of what I focus on as the emotional backpack. And inside our emotional backpack, we carry those experiences, those life experiences that started from when we were in the womb, and kind of a thread that follows us through our lives. And those experiences have influenced who we become. Um, and then we talk about the emotions. I mean, we can talk about emotions until the sun comes, and what those emotions, and we feel those in our body. And there's so many different expressions of the way that they are. They're packed into that backpack too. They're in there. And then our values, what our values are and where they came from, and our morals and our ethics and our norms and what we believe to be true, our personality, all of those things are strapped on our back. We carry them with us everywhere we go. And they influence all of our decisions. They influence who we are, how we react to situations. And a lot of us walk around with backpacks full of stuff that we don't necessarily recognize, that we don't really realize is kind of in the bottom, in there. You know, you see kind of the pens and the pencils and the ruler sticking out and those kind of things. Those are things that we probably see on a regular basis, and we acknowledge those. But those things that are buried deep in that backpack, we don't always take a good hard look at to realize what they are. And sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, sometimes they're ugly, sometimes they're a little bit in between. Sometimes they're not so awful. So it really all depends. Um, so we really have to know what's in there. We have to dig in there, and we have to figure out what is in that backpack. And so when we take a chance to really take a hard look at ourselves, which is what is part of this summit, is to do that, to really understand who we are and how to get better, right? How to be the best version of ourselves. So let's unpack it and let's see what's in your backpack. And in order to do that, you really have to be aware and really dig into your self awareness. And the quote on our screen here shows us that. Self awareness is the ability to see yourself clearly and objectively through reflection and introspection. So we have to take those quiet moments, and we have to take a hard look and say, what do I see in this backpack? And I'm going to dig in and I'm going to look into this backpack. What's in here? You know, and you can kind of feel those emotions that are coming up. And who raised you? How were you raised? What does that story tell you today? How has that impacted you throughout your life? What are your core values? What do you see in there? What are those things that you really lead from? So we have so many values and so many ideas on how we look at life and how we act in life and how we behave in life. But there are these core values, and I tend to think there's 3 to 5 that really dictate what we do, how we do it, and how we interact on a daily basis. So if we really dig in and see that, and we understand that what our core values are, then we can see why we act the way that we do. And it's so important for us to have that self-awareness, to be able to see clearly and objectively. You know, for me, I have some abandonment issues based on some of my background and my history. I know when that comes up. I see it, it shows up, and I see it, I feel it, and I can't make it go away, but I can acknowledge that it's there. And when I can name it and I can feel it and I can see it, I can move through it. And that's really important. Um, so as you really think about moving on this journey of figuring out who you are, you really have to take that good hard look at yourself and that reflection, and really taking that time to sit in the quiet and think about, who am I, journaling on a daily basis to really pull out and see those situations and how you reacted in those situations and how that has influenced what you have done and how you have reacted, and where you can kind of start to see a common thread that runs through. And that's really part of how I came to that conclusion about my own abandonment stuff, is because I started to see a common thread that was showing up for me. And I was able to then address that and to be able to come to the place of acknowledging that it's there, um, but that it's okay that it's there. And it just kind of let it be my sidekick and let it play off in the background sometimes. Um, and so once we have this and we're able to see this and have this self reflection, we're able to then take a look and see how this impacts us, how it impacts others, and then what do we need to do? What adaptations do we need to make? What changes to our behavior do we need to make in order to move past it? Because those things that have those direct impacts on us, we need to know how to move past those. And so when we know who we really are and what that looks like for us, we can then be the best version of ourselves. And we hear about change and how to become a new you, how to do all of those things. And those things are valuable in our growth and development. But before we can even move in that way, is we have to know who we are first, what I value, what my strengths are, what am I really good at, what really pushes me in a new direction, to know what I'm really good at, and to also know what my limitations are. What am I not so great at? What boundaries do I need to set? And knowing that these things are not my best. These things are the core to true joy and happiness. And when you find yourself, like constantly fighting for things that you think you should fight about, but they don't light you up, then you're just fighting. You're just continuing to fight for things that don't really matter to you. So we look around and we see these things and we hear people saying that this is what life should be. Then we keep fighting for that, but that's not really the source of who we are and what we want in life. Then guess what? We're going to be on someone else's journey all the time. So we need to sit down at that road and we need to look and we need to see where we're going and where we want to be going and what that looks like for us. So that mountain in this picture that's in front of us, what is that, the mountain we really want to climb? Is that the mountain that I want to be on? Is that the mountain that when I cross it and I get to that summit, that's going to light me up? And if the answer to that is no, then you need to find a new road. And which, when we know that we're on the wrong path, then that's when we can pull back. But before we get there, again, that self-awareness is key. Um, the next thing I want to talk about, which plays right into this, is the unique blend that you are of your talents, your strengths, your experiences, those things in your emotional backpack that light you up, and the things that may hold you back. And we have to kind of work and adapt and figure those things out. Those are what make you uniquely you. You need to embrace those, and you need to find that comfort zone, that point where we're living in a place of our natural talents 80% of the time, and where we're moving towards our goals, our dreams, our mountains that we want to climb. That 80% of the time, when we live there, we find ourselves in flow, getting stuff done, moving at a quicker pace. It's that other 20% of the time when we find ourselves moving a little bit slower. It's kind of a sloggy journey, because those are things that are maybe not necessarily in our strength zone. They don't necessarily light us up, but they're essential. So we have to find that balance and find that 80-20. And that 80-20 rule applies in many different situations, and you've probably heard it before used in different ways. But really thinking about, if you're spending 80% of your time working within your strengths, your talents, working towards your goals, your mountains, then the other 20% of the time, when you are in those areas that might be a little bit more difficult for you, that it's easier because you're spending the majority of your time in those areas of strength. So let's move on to an example of what this looks like. Um, and I like to think about this as swimming. Okay. So we're swimming. I mean, this woman, she's strong. You can see her muscles. She's pushing through that. You're swimming at a good speed. You're with the current, flowing with the current 80% of the time. So what does that feel like? Your body's in sync, you're moving, you're making progress. You don't even realize how quickly you're moving or how hard your body is working, because you're in flow, because you're with the current, you're moving towards your dreams, you're working in that way, and you know what's coming. And then all of a sudden, and you're able to take in what's going on around you. So let's say this woman, she looks like she's in an ocean. So she's being able to see what's going on around her, the wildlife, possibly, maybe some fish, some dolphins jumping in the background. Um, but then all of a sudden she hits this hard point where she's being pulled against the current, but her direction is that way. Her goal is that way, but the current is pulling her this way. So now she's pushing against her strengths in her swimming, and she's got to really work hard. And what she's noticing is that her heart rate is coming up a little bit. She can feel her muscles pushing a little bit harder. She's breathing a little bit deeper, and she's really pushing, working, really pushing herself through this swim to get there to the goals. And then all of a sudden, the current flows, starts to flow back into the direction towards her goals. So thinking about that 80-20 rule and how hard we're slogging through, if we're constantly in that push where we're feeling that heart rate going up, we can feel every muscle in our body pushing against that current, we need to reassess, and we need to realize that maybe we're not working within our strengths as much as we should be. So we need to, be tapping into that 80%. And again, self-awareness, knowing what our talents or strengths are, what is in our emotional backpack, and figuring that out. So then we can find ourselves having that natural ebb and flow of our day, where 80% of the time we're working in areas of our strengths, and what we value, and what we're working towards, and our goals and things that are important to us, that we need to find that 80% and to live in that 80%. So then we can deal with the other 20. I could list a bunch of examples of those times, of those things that in my 20% that are not in my areas of strength, or things that I really enjoy doing, or things that light me up, but they're necessary. And we all can probably list some of those things. But it's a matter of really figuring out what those talents and strengths are to get us to that 80%. Um, and the next thing that brings us to is authenticity. So authenticity is a collection of those choices that we have to make every day. It's about the choice to show up, to be real, the choice to be honest, and the choice to let our true selves be seen. That's by Brene Brown. She's wonderful. And really talking about the necessity for us to show up as our true selves. And it's taking me a long time to kind of get to this place, to being authentic. And I sometimes like to say, like, I'm unapologetically me, which is a good thing. And then it can also be a bad thing, because you know what you're going to get, and you know what you're going to get. So it's not really changing. So um, that's the good news. It is what it is. And it's taken me years to get here, this growth and development, to really open up that backpack and dig in and really find out all of those things, see it, feel it, work with it, refine it, acknowledge it, And not everything in there is shiny and pretty, but guess what? It's there, so we have to face it and recognize when we may be triggered by some of those things that may not be so shiny. And when we find ourselves coming to that place of living in that 80/20 and really living in our strengths and our talents, then we are going to light up. We are going to shine a light so bright um, that we can't be ignored. And what happens then is when we're shining our light so bright and people see us being unapologetically me, being unapologetically you, that they can't ignore it. And so they want some of that action. They want to light up too, and they want to see how they can also be unapologetically them. And I really believe that if we all take that time to really reflect and learn who we are and really acknowledge all of those things in our life that have moved us down this timeline and brought us to who we are today, that we can be this light for the world and we can help others be their light in the world and feel that safety of being that light in the world. And I want to leave you with a reminder that when you light up with joy, you shine so bright that people can't ignore you. And they're going to want that too. And my final thought is that you were created as a unique woman with a unique blend of characteristics, talents, strengths, and abilities. Know who you are, what your gifts are, then take the steps to doing the work to living an authentic life. So I thank you all for taking the time to be here with me and share in this space and think about what those things are for you. And I hope you enjoy this summit and continue to grow and evolve and become that uniquely, wonderfully you that you are.